Dan Illman, Mike Beer for Kentucky Derby Prep Recap. In this edition, we'll take a look back at the Tampa Bay Derby at 1.16 miles, and all eyes were on the number 6, Tapit Trice, sent off at 1-2 for Todd Pletcher in his stakes debut. We break from the gate, and the number 6, Tapit Trice, as Tapit Trice is wont to do, breaks slowly, and the chalk eaters are holding their breath.
Yes, just still hasn't figured out the gate quite yet. Just gets away slowly every single time, but he is moving forward first time through the stretch here, Dan. So he's always going to be, back off the pace. He's also always going to be sort of towards the outside in this field, but he's not terribly outrun here. And this pace is pretty solid.
And you're absolutely right. You took the words out of my mouth. This is an honest pace up front. Zydeco is trying to make the lead. He is up close with Dreaming of Kona. These are big priced horses that may not want this distance. Prairie Hawk is sitting in a good spot in third after breaking, but we're going to keep a look at Tapit Trice. He's on the outside. He did get forward. There does seem to be a point, however, where he's being hard ridden and maybe not going anywhere right away.
Yeah, I mean, as they get into the far turn, especially right about now, he's being asked to keep up here. He's not going to really start dropping back, and he's not going to lose any position, but he's not really gaining any ground either. And from here on out, it's just going to be all about his rider, Luis Saez, just keeping after him, make sure that he sustains this run, because at the end of the day, he towered over this field. He's a very heavy favorite. Just about everybody expected him to win. As they come to the stretch now, he's very wide, but he's starting to make up ground at this point, Dan. And he's actually going to put in, he's going to find some real momentum here. The last eighth of a mile, he's going to steamroll this field.
Classic Car Wash, who was third in the Sam F. Davis, gets to a short lead after making a bid on the turn. But here's Tapit Trice. And you have a feeling distance is going to be his friend because he overwhelms these horses, as Mike mentioned, in the final 16th of a mile to prove a popular winner with an 88 Beyer speed figure. We'll get to him in a second. Let's talk about Classic Car Wash. This is a horse, Mike, that has done nothing wrong in his career. He ran just fine in the Sam F. Davis. He ran just fine in this race. Maybe he is a notch below some of the major Kentucky Derby contenders, but he seems to be moving the right way.
Yeah, that's fair enough, Dan. He certainly does feel like he's a notch or two below, the top 3-year-olds in this division. And not that there's, been tons of, super impressive performances, but there are some good 3-year-olds around. To me, Classic Car Wash probably isn't, at the top level. He ran fine in here. I actually like the ride that he got in this race. He saved a little ground early. He went ahead of the winner around that second turn. He got first run on that horse. He managed to fight his way to the lead in the stretch. He was just no match at the end.
The distant second choice in the wagering was Classic Legacy, who ended up finishing third for trainer Bill Mott, only his second start of the form cycle. Another horse that was running on a little bit at the end of this race, although never threatening the winner, and another horse that's likely improving, and another horse like Classic Car Wash that needs to find even more improvement if he's going to be considered in the upper echelon of this crop.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, listen, there's still a ways to go here. And it's, it's not all about the Derby. I mean, certainly you want to keep an open mind down the road too. So far, Classic Causeway, to me, he's not really looking like a horse who's going to continue to be competitive as these prep races get tougher, Dan. Didn't see much of an excuse for him here. I thought the trip overall was a really good one. He's another horse who was clear in the stretch ahead of the winner. He never made a real impact on this race, and he wound up getting third. But to me, he was really no factor at any point.
This was a very important race for Prairie Hawk, the fourth place finisher. He got a big allowance win 2 starts back in a race where he controlled a slow pace in a field of only 4 horses or something like that. He did not run very well in the Sam F. Davis, but he ran quite well here considering he was wide, up close to the solid pace, and really the only part of the pace still hanging around.
Yeah, I mean, I like the way they rode him here, Dan. In the Sam Davis, where he ran pretty poorly, he got into a little bit of traffic early in that race, and maybe that just sort of compromised him a little bit. He couldn't really be forward, and then he didn't do a lot of running after that. Here, he broke from the outside. They got aggressive with him. They put him right up on the pace in here. He took that 3-wide trip. He was with the leaders. I thought he did his very best in this race, really fighting it out to about mid-stretch. He just wasn't good enough.
Tapit Trice's stablemate Shesterkin, a horse that Tapit Trice handled at Gulfstream Park in their race prior to the Tampa Bay Derby. He was somewhat disappointing in here. He was wide, and relatively close to the pace. He made a bid on the second turn and he flattened out almost as quickly as he made that move. I think he needs to turn back in distance. Toot sweet.
Yeah, he probably does. It's interesting, Dan. I actually thought he would be aggressive in this race and maybe try to make the lead, and they didn't. They didn't do that. That obviously wasn't the plan. He was not looking for the lead. He was rated wide early. The biggest problem that I had with his race is around the final turn, when some other horses started making runs. It felt like Zayas wanted to make runs then too. He just couldn't keep up. He didn't get up to challenge the leaders. That left him to have to drop over to the rail at the top of the stretch. If you watch the head-on replay, he is still in with a chance. It's very tight down there, and he would not be the first, lightly raced 3-year-old who didn't really want to come through a tight opening on the rail in the stretch. That being said, the problem for him was the only reason he was down there is because he couldn't reach contention around the final turn. Maybe it is a distance thing. I wouldn't be too hard on him for this performance, but it still remains to be seen how good he is.
The 8th place finisher, Groveland, finished best of the horses in the Sam F. Davis to come back in the Tampa Bay Derby. He was down inside most of the way after sort of acting up a bit in the gate. Maybe he didn't care for being down inside, but this was a regression.
It really was. He got a great trip in the Sam Davis and ran okay in that race. I didn't think he had a poor trip here. He was a little further away from the pace. He wound up outrun, but he got to save a lot of ground. He didn't have a lot of traffic. He was never involved.
Like Groveland, Zydeco did not run as well in the Tampa Bay Derby as he did in the Sam F. Davis. He is a horse that desperately needs a cutback in distance and a drop in class, and I still think he can be a very useful sprinter in Florida.
Yeah, I'd have no problem with them giving him one more chance here to see what would happen along this Derby trail. He's got really good speed. I'm with you. I think these longer distances do nothing for him.
Champion's Dream disappointed very badly in the Sam F. Davis. After the race, it emerged that he sprung a shoe and injured a foot. It was a little bit surprising to see him wheel back here in the Tampa Bay Derby, and now it might be time for a little break.
It's bad in here again. Didn't break sharply from the gate. Another horse who they just really didn't try to go forward with him. Took a hold of him from the start. He was on the outside, but he was bad in this race.
Well, let's take a closer look at our winner, Tapit Trice, who really springboards up the ranks of many top 10 lists for the Kentucky Derby based on this victory in the Tampa Bay Derby. He sold for $1.3 million as a Keeneland September yearling. He's by the all-world stallion Tapit. His dam is a half-sister to Breeders' Cup Juvenile Fillies winner Jaywalk. Distance looks like it's going to be his friend. He's won 3 in a row. He goes out for Todd Pletcher. He ticks a lot of boxes, Mike.
It does. It'll be interesting to see how much more he can develop. He obviously needs at least one more prep here, Dan, on the way to the Derby, just to see if, first of all, he's got to get the gate figured out. You'd never like to see these horses have to be so hard ridden throughout their races, but I don't know, man. There's something there with this horse. Only an 88 buyer beating a pretty bad field here, but man, you could do worse than finding horses who finish the way that he finished. He's finished well at all 4 of his starts. And that's a good thing for this horse going forward. And obviously, it doesn't feel like more distance is any issue for him.
It appears he'll be making his final prep at Keeneland in the prestigious Bluegrass Stakes. But you're right. The key for this horse is, will he be able to cure his gait woes? In the Kentucky Derby, I find it very hard to believe that he's going to break 18th, 19th, 20th, and then find the wherewithal to either weave his way through or go around that gigantic field. So he still has some work to do. He's very lightly raced. He has plenty of upside potential, and he has plenty of natural talent. And as we look at the prices for the Tampa Bay Derby, he took plenty of play. He returned $3. Classic Car Wash had another good effort, finished second, and Classic Legacy, slowly moving forward, finished third for Bill Mott. It was 6-2-3 in the Tampa Bay Derby, and Tapit Trice is moving on to the Bluegrass.